Could I firstly, agenda item 1, can I ask for appointment of chair? I'm happy to chair this meeting this afternoon. Could I have a proposal and a seconder, please?
Gwyn cynnig, I propose.
Thank you, Evelyn. Seconder?
Happy to second.
Thank you. Okay then. Chair's announcements. Good afternoon, as I said, and welcome to this hybrid meeting of Cabinet on the 22nd of February 2023. I'm Councillor Stephen, leader of Neath Talbot, County Borough Council. Can I welcome members of the public viewing this meeting this afternoon? And can I ask you to please ensure your microphones are switched off? You are here to observe the meeting only. Please can I also ensure that your phones are switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. Also, would all members and officers virtually viewing this meeting please ensure that their microphones are switched to off unless you are speaking. In addition, when asked to raise your hand, if members who are virtually attending the meeting could raise your electronic hand, and for members here in the chamber, raise your physical hands. Agenda item 3 is declarations of interest. Can I ask members, are there any declarations of interest? Please would members say what the items are and what the interest is. And Jane, if you could forward an electronic version of a form for them to complete and email back to you. So anybody got any declarations of interest, please?
I can see no hands raised, Chair.
Thank you, Jane. Agenda item 4 is the minutes of the previous meeting, which were held on the 30th of November 2022. And I refer you now to the pages 5 to 12 of your agenda pack. They are here for approval of accuracy only. So have members got any comments on the accuracy of these minutes? I see no. Oh, Jen?
I can see no hands raised, Chair.
Okay. I would propose these minutes as accurate. Could I have a seconder, please?
I second.
Thank you, Alan. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume that you are content with the accuracy of those minutes. Jane, can you confirm again, please?
I can see no hands raised. The contrary, Chair, so that item's been approved.
Thank you, Jane. Agenda item 5 is the forward work programme for 2022-2023. The forward work programme is on pages 13 to 16 and it's here for information. Do members have any questions on the forward work programme, please?
I can see no hands raised, Chair.
Thank you, Jane. Agenda item 6 is the public question time. I have received no notification from the public to speak at today's meeting. Agenda item 7 is the self-assessment 2021-2022. The report is on pages 17 to 56 and it's here for the decision. Do officers have anything further to add?
No, Chair, nothing to add.
Chief Exec, please.
Can I just comment, Chair, that the requirement in the legislation is that the Audit and Governance Committee is required to review this document and did so at its last meeting, and there are no recommendations or observations they wanted to bring to your attention.
Thank you for that information, Karen. Do members have any questions on this item, please?
I can see no hands raised, Chair.
Okay, I now refer members to the recommendations on page 19 and the appendix 1 of your agenda pack. I will propose this recommendation. Could I have a seconder, please?
I second.
Thank you, Alan. Any abstentions? I see none. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume that you're in favour of the recommendation. And Jane, can you confirm, please?
I can see no hands raised to the contrary, Chair, so that item has been approved.
Thank you, Jane. Agenda item 8 is the establishment of a liaison forum in respect of the Avon Valley Adventure Resort. This report is on pages 57 to 64 and is here for a decision. Officers, do you have anything further to add?
Nothing to add, Chair.
Thank you, Craig. Karen, please.
Just to reflect in the minutes of Cabinet, Leader, that there was a request, I think, in the Scrutiny Committee meeting that mechanisms for encouraging the representatives of the Council on this body to report back regularly to the relevant Scrutiny Committee be action. So if the minutes could reflect that, if Cabinet are minded to propose that. And I think there was a separate point as well around making sure that any impact wider than the wards that are listed in the current terms of reference, that those be kept under review by the council's representatives. So if there is a wider impact, representations could be made if felt appropriate to widen the terms of reference or widen the membership in due course. So again, I think if Cabinet are minded to take on board what the Scrutiny Committee had to say on that point, you might want to reflect that in the minutes.
Thank you, Karen. It's members for any questions. Before I bring Arlene in, I certainly respect and understand the points raised by the Scrutiny Committee members, and mindful of what Karen have indicated to look at that going forward. But I'll bring Councillor Llewellyn in, and then if any other member has any questions then or observations, I'll bring them in. So Arlene first then, please.
Yeah, diolch yn fawr Owen. Thank you, Leader. I was just going to reflect really that there's some very relevant points and questions raised during scrutiny, and appreciated the advice that was given by both the head of legal services and our chief executive in replies. I think that's captured in the note that Karen, as our chief executive, has just outlined to us. And hopefully, that will help us, as these are quite important bodies, I think, in trying to ensure that we're delivering these projects in the way that we want to see them develop. And as their work evolves, I'm sure they will take on board the points that have been made in today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Arlene. Any other member got any observations? No? Are members happy to take on board the relevant points raised by scrutiny and what our chief exec and deputy leaders have said, and myself? Happy? Yeah, that's great. With those included, then I now refer members to the recommendations on pages 61 and the associated appendices. I will propose the recommendation. Could I have a seconder, please?
Hapus i eilio, Cadeirydd, pleased to support.
Thank you, Arlene. Any abstentions? No abstentions, Jane?
No.
Yeah. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I assume that you are in favour of the recommendations. Jane, can you confirm, please?
I can see no hands raised, Chair. To the contrary, so that item's been approved.
Thank you, Jane. Agenda item 9 is the establishment of an advisory panel in respect of the Global Centre of Rail Excellence. The report is on pages 65 to 88, and this is here for a decision also. Do officers have anything further to add? Karen, please.
So it's the same point, I think, that was raised as a general principle in relation to the previous agenda item, Chair, but I think there was a specific point as well raised by Councillor Reynolds in relation to the commoners' interests in relation to this particular development, which I'm sure the Council's representatives would want to take on board. So again, if you're minded to agree with that, perhaps the minutes could reflect that.
Thank you for that, Karen. I certainly am minded to agree with that principle and recommendation, although I know it's not forms part of the recommendation, but just taking that on board. Do members have any questions? Further questions, sorry. So, Arlene? Yeah.
Well, Leader, no, I think it's similar to the previous item, and I'm sure we'll take it in that spirit.
Thank you for that. So with that minded to do, can I now refer members to the recommendations on pages 70 and 71 and the associated appendices. I would like to propose, please, could I have a second up for this item?
Hapus i eilio, pleased to support.
Thank you, Arlene. Any abstentions?
None, Chair.
Thank you, Jane. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume that you are in favour of the recommendations. And Jane, can you confirm the outcome, please?
Yes, Chair, I can see no hands raised to the contrary, so that item has been approved.
Thank you, Jane. Agenda item 10 is the proposal to close 5 operational staff and accommodation buildings under phase 1 of the common accommodation review. The report is on pages 89 to 102 and it's here for a decision. Do officers have anything further to add?
Nothing further to add, Leader.
Thank you, Nicola. Members, do you have any questions? This raised quite a number of questions, observations, and sort of recommendations within it, I suppose. But can I hand over to, I'll go to Councillor Noyle first then, and then I'll come to Councillor Llewellyn. Please.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you, Leader. Just a few things I'd like to say. Firstly, I know that an awful lot of work has gone into this first phase of the accommodation review. The saving of the approximately £158,000 put in front of us, the detail behind that I know is available and can be made available to members who made questions regarding that at the scrutiny meeting. I would ask and possibly suggest that those sorts of questions could be asked in advance of the meeting and the information provided too, so there's a bit more information for people to see when we get to the meeting and discuss, if that's okay. The second thing I'd like to say is that I don't think I picked up from the scrutiny meeting a broad agreement that this needs to happen. And when I say this needs to happen, I mean a review of the accommodation. We discussed this at consultation of the budget very recently, and it would be foolish of us to continue to lease properties from outside bodies when we have spare availability within our current buildings for those members of staff. And I think it's a really good idea, something perhaps should have been started a long time ago, but needs to continue into phase 2. And lastly, Leader, I'd just like to say that there was some inference that this item in particular was there to help stand up the potential budget for next year. And I don't think that's the case. I think it's a genuine item that we need to move on and change the culture and operating style of the council moving forward. And I hope to see a few more coming forward, a few more buildings coming forward in the second stage of the accommodation review, and hopefully make a bigger impact into the savings of the way the council operates. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you for that, Councillor Lloyd, and I'm sure we'll all agree with you on that. I mean, we're in difficult times and we have to make savings. So I thank you for those observations and comments. Councillor Llewellyn, please.
Yeah, diolch Owain. Thank you, Leader. And very briefly to follow on from Councillor Simon Noyle. I mean, I'm sure the officers would have noted all the questions that were being asked and the additional information being requested. And I think, as the Chief Executive was saying during the debate, obviously the information needs to be proportional and relevant to assist in the discussions of scrutiny. But in the meantime, I'd like to thank our officers team for making progress so soon and already on the rationalisation of buildings with the consequent financial savings, the avoiding of duplication and waste, and also the environmental benefits too. And I'm sure these will be welcomed by our residents and you know, by members of staff that are working for the authority as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Arlen. I'm sure we'll all echo the comments you made about our officers. I mean, we've highlighted the difficulties we have with retention and staff we have, and they're doing an amazing job, obviously, under very difficult circumstances. So thank you for them. Okay, any members got any further questions? I see none. I now refer members to the recommendation on page 94. I'll propose this recommendation. Can I have a seconder, please?
Hapus i eilio, please, 2 seconds.
Thank you, Alan. Any abstentions?
I can see none, Chair.
Thank you, Jane. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume that you're in favour of the recommendations. Jane?
I can see no hands raised to the contrary, Chair, so that item's been approved.
Thank you. Agenda item 11 is the Capital Budget Monitoring Report 2022-2023. The report is on pages 103 to 114 and is here for monitoring. Do officers have anything further to add, you?
Nothing to add, thank you, Chair.
Karen, please.
Again, Chair, just picking up on the comments that were made in scrutiny, we've given an undertaking to go back with more detail on some of the slippage that's contained within the report. So it's clear whether it's a supply chain disruption, whether it's an additional grant that we've had in that's then allowing us to make our money go a bit further, or whether it's a capacity issue within the system. So I think those are all quite reasonable questions that the scrutiny committee asked for. So we will make sure that we do that. But I think also as well, there were a number of points on the monitoring reports about whether there was sufficient detail or not included in the report. So I look forward to having those conversations with Councillor Jones, but also with the scrutiny chairs sooner rather than later, so that we can agree what the scrutiny committees need in order to fulfil their very important role. And we can make sure that we get the balance right going forward.
Thank you, Karen. Do Do members have any questions? Councillor Llewellyn, please.
Yeah, just very briefly, Chair, just to say, taking on board all the questions that were asked in scrutiny, and obviously there was reference to capacity to deliver on some of the projects, given both the economic situation and the difficulty of actually being able to implement work. We're not unique in that. But one thing, obviously, that we have committed as an administration is try to ensure that in all the relevant departments that we have the capacity needed, to move the programmes forward. And that's part of our medium-term financial plan and also part of our workforce strategy as well, which has been sort of well supported in recent months. Obviously we've seen again in recent months, success in obtaining levelling up funding, for instance, for the first time, which took a huge amount of input on behalf of all of the departments that are relevant. It really was a cross-departmental and a one council approach to achieving that, plus supporting the GCRE and Wild Fox projects that we've spoken about this afternoon. So I think obviously we'll keep on looking at these other areas where we need to get the appropriate people in place to ensure that we can deliver these programmes, and hopefully that gives some reassurance to members of scrutiny that ask the relevant questions this afternoon. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Alan. Karen will come back on that.
Yeah, just might be helpful, because when I was responding earlier, I was kind of reacting to the question rather than having a time to think about it. But just to give a bit more assurance, really, that we put £1 million additional financial investment into the Environment Directorate in the last 12 months to be able to deal with the pressures that we were seeing coming through. And that money in the budget proposal that we've just consulted on is identified in there as a permanent additional funding within that service directorate. On the workforce point, because Nicola was quite right to sort of raise, it's not just a money issue, it's actually the workforce problems are more challenging sometimes than the money problems are. But in the performance monitoring report that either this committee or the Policy and Resources Committee is going to have next, what you'll see in there is that we've recruited somewhere in the region of 600 staff in the last 12 months. And we've had a turnover of about 500. So we are seeing a net improvement in the number of staff that we are recruiting and retaining. Obviously, sometimes it's not a like for like. So sometimes the people we're bringing in don't have the level of experience, obviously, that the people that are leaving the organisation. So I think just to give you some assurances and to be a bit more positive about it, there are improvements in terms of we are getting success in terms of bids. We are seeing some success with our workforce strategy that we've been working on now for the best part of the last 12 months. But I think the labour market, and particularly what's happening around the continuing bearing down of public sector pay, which, listening to the news this morning, if it is right that the UK government are going to cap public sector pay at 3.5%, we will find it increasingly unattractive when we're competing with the private sector and other parts of the public sector. So I don't want to sort of underplay the risk and the challenge that we've got going forward. But what I would say to you is that we spend a lot of time looking at workforce issues when we put the workforce strategy together, the Future of Work team. And what it underlines to me is the real importance of not just bringing people in, but making sure we double down on the work that we do to upskill our people when we've got them. Because what we seem to be able to do as an organisation is once we've got people in, we're very good at hanging on to them because people like working for us. And I think there is a challenge there, and an opportunity there for us to put more programmes in place to upskill people. One, it'll get our lower paid staff then hopefully into better paid work, which will help with our cost of living challenge, help to keep them in the organisation. But I think it's going to become even more difficult in the foreseeable future for us to keep competing on pay in relation to a number of our professional and technical and senior staff as well. You've seen the pool of applicants we've had for the corporate director's post. We are, increasingly fishing in small ponds when we're going out for recruitment exercises. So I suppose what I'm saying to you, these are real risks, that you are quite right in the scrutiny committee to be raising. Now, the cabinet are fully aware of this as well, because we talk to you regularly about it. But I think it's just about reflecting. It's not just a money issue. it is, fundamentally, we've got a significant workforce risk that we really need to be keeping on working at. The first phase on the recruitment strategy has gone reasonably well, but we have got hard to fill jobs. And it's taken a long time sometimes to fill some of those vacancies. So perhaps, in the forward work programmes, both for the Cabinet and also for scrutiny committees, you might want to take a particular interest in the next 12 months on how we're getting on with the success of some of the other interventions we now need to bring forward. And I'm really grateful I get the support as well of members to do this as well, because across party, when we brought the issues forward, I think it was last November, and told you what the kind of capacity challenges were that we had, there was no question from members or about the support to really try to do the best we can to alleviate that. So I know it's a bit of a long-winded response, Leader, but as I was kind of reflecting after I answered the question earlier, I kind of reminded myself that we have actually got some successes. We have made these investments, but I think particularly around the economic development activity that we're seeing, it's in a way it's a nice problem to have, isn't it? That we've got all these people who want to create all this work here, but it's absolutely overwhelming on times for some of our staff in terms of being able to deal with things that we've not dealt with before. They are complex, they're new partners, and sometimes they're very demanding partners as well, because they're investing large sums of money here. They don't want their costs to increase, so they're expecting a very agile, timely response from the council on a lot of these things. But it is what it is, and all I can say to you is that we are making progress on it, but there is still a way to go, and there will be a further report that I'll be talking to the Cabinet about very, very shortly about what we need to do next.
Thank you very much for that, Karen. And I think it was important that, it's a sobering realisation of where we are. And this council, since its existence, has been really, really good at capital budgets and what they deliver for Neath and Talbot. So that needs to be recognised, but it does get more difficult if we haven't got the resources and certainly the workforce to deliver on a lot of them. But it as you said, it's a nice place to be in. Councillor Noyle, please.
Thank you, Steve. Unlike you, I don't like to speak without a reason behind it. And I'm grateful. Oh, sorry, did I say it out loud? But I'm grateful to Karen and Hugh for the responses given in this meeting and the last. And I think I was sat here earlier on thinking, what the heck? And I mean this with a huge amount of respect to my more experienced colleagues across the room. The document we see in front of us today is no different to the document we've seen for the last 5 years when I was in opposition. And I think perhaps I would have dealt with it slightly differently. And I'm not telling you what to do or any in any stretch of the imagination like that. But if there are, and I'm trying to look out now for my head of service in terms of the workload that he's got in his team. If there are specific items like were brought up regarding City Deal and Margam and the DFG, whether those questions could be asked before we come to the meeting, so the information is there and readily available, so that it's more of an informed discussion at Cabinet scrutiny. I hope I'm not telling you what to do, as I said. I'm not trying to say it at all, but the information can be more specific then, rather than creating a huge amount of more work for Hugh and his team to provide after the event, if that makes sense. I genuinely mean what I'm saying. I'm just trying to look out for my head of service, and as I say, I know the detail will be there and the reasons why, but I thought I needed to say that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Noyle, and for those kind comments. You just know me too well, don't you? Okay, then. This item is here with no decision required. It's for monitoring only. So I'll move on to agenda item 12, which is the Revenue Budget Monitoring Report 2022-2023. The report is on pages 115 to 132 and is here for monitoring. Officers, do you have anything further to add, Hugh?
Nothing for me, thank you, Chair.
Members, any questions on this item? I see none. Can I just say, I think Hugh did hint that, again, great credit needs to go to Hugh and his team for this, bringing this in. I think you said slightly over budget, very slightly over budget. The work that goes in, sorry, All right, Karen? All right. No, that's right. The work that goes in is substantial, and we talked about workforce and so forth. So I think it needs to be noted that and take it back to your team for the work on this report. So thank you, Hugh. Yeah, go on.
Just to come back in, Chair, thank you for those kind words, but the hard work is down to people who actually manage budgets across the council. And we pull the information together, but it's the accountable managers who on a daily basis manage budgets, are responsible for bringing what was at one point in time almost a £10 million overspend back to almost nothing. So I appreciate the kind words, Chair, but the credit is to everybody across the council, not just to me and my team. Thank you.
Yeah, with those comments, can you take that back to all accountable managers and staff then? Thank you, Hugh. Again, there's no decision required here. It's only for monitoring.
Chair, if I can just note, that was the report where there was an error in it. So
Oh.
just for to note it, that I will put in the minutes.
That was the 3-point-something million, was it? Yes, okay. Thank you for that, Shane. Yeah, note that, thank you. Okay, agenda item 13 is the Treasury Management Report 2022-2023. The report is on page 133 to 140 and is here for monitoring also. Officers, do you have anything further to add?
Nothing on this report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Hugh. Members, any questions? See none? There is no decision again required for this report, so it's for monitoring. So thank you. Agenda item 14 is the Treasury Management Mid-Year Review Report 2022-2023. Report is on page 141 to 158 and it's here for monitoring again. Officers, do you have anything further to add?
Nothing. Thank you very much, Chair.
Members, any questions? I see none. Again, no decision required. It's here for monitoring. Agenda item 15 is the 2022-2023 Risk Register Monitoring Report. The report is on page 159 to 166 and it's here for monitoring. Officers, do you have anything further to add on this? Karen, please.
Again, Chair, just to reflect the discussion we had in the Scrutiny Committee, we will make sure that the property asset management mitigations and controls are reflected in the next version of this that comes back to the committee in relation to strategic risk number 1.
Thank you for that, Karen. Members, any questions? Alan?
No, only to say that, yeah, we do appreciate the responses that were given this afternoon, and that helps inform us as well as scrutiny, and I'm sure that information will be taken on board by officers for future reports. Thanks.
I think we all agree with that. There is no decision on this report either, so it's here for monitoring. So that'll take me quickly into agenda item 16, urgent items, and I have none. Phil, you're smiling there, and and that will conclude our business this afternoon. So can I thank you for your attendance and a safe journey home for all of you in the chamber, and those of you online. Well, I don't know where you are, but enjoy.